Good evening, Achan. Good evening, dear my classmate. Today I will give my Dhamma talk. Big topic is understanding the Dhamma's teaching. When we hear a Dhamma talk, or study a sutra, our only job is to remain open. Usually, when we hear or read something new, we just compare it to our own ideas. If it is the same, we accept it and say that it is correct. If it is not, we say it is incorrect. Open mind and an open heart, the rain of the Dhamma will penetrate the soul of our consciousness. The gentle spring rain ferments the soul of my soul, a seed that has lain deeply in the earth from many years just smiles. While reading or listening, don't work too hard. We like the earth. When the rain comes, the earth only has to open herself up to the rain. Allow the rain of the Dhamma to come in and patent the seeds that are burned deep in your consciousness. A teacher cannot give you the truth. The truth is already in you. You only need to open yourself, body, mind and heart, so that his or her teachings will penetrate your own seeds of understanding and enlightenment. If you let the words enter you, the soul and the seeds will do the rest of the work. The transmission of the teachings of the Dhamma can be divided into three steps. Buddhism. Many schools, Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism includes all the teaching the Dhamma gave during his lifetime. 114 years after the Buddha great passing away, the Sangha divided into two schools: Mahayana Nikaya, literally majority, referring to those who wanted change, and Sattvagrapta, literally schools of elders, referring to those who opposed the change and advocate by the Sangha Nikaya. 100 years after the Sattvagrapta divided into two branches: Sarvasiddhvada, the school that proclaims everything is, and Vibhajayada, the schools that discriminates. The Vibhajayada, this supported by King Asoka. Closed in the Ganga's valley, while the Savitri went north to Kashmir for 400 years during and after the Buddha's lifetime. His teachings were transmitted only after that monk in the Tamrasathiya school. Those who were corporate ropes in Sri Lanka, a derivative of the Vibhajyada school, began to think about reading the Buddha's discourse on plan. Live, and it took another 100 years to begin. By that time, it is said that there was only one monk who had memorized the whole canon, and that he was somewhat arrogant. The other monks had to persuade him to recite the discourse so they could write. They done. When we hear this, we feel a little uneasy, knowing that an arrogant monk may not have been the best vehicle to transmit the teaching of the Buddha. Even during the Buddha's lifetime, there were people such as the monk Aritha who misunderstood the Buddha's teaching and converted them inconsistently. It is also apparent that some of the monks who memorized the sutras over the centuries did not understand their deepest meanings, or at the very least they forget it or changed some word. As a result, some of the Buddha's teachings were destroyed even before they were written down. Before the Buddha attained full realization of the path. For example, he had tried various methods to support his mind, and they did not work. In one discourse, he recounted, "I thought, why don't I grit my teeth, press my tongue against my plant and use my mind to repress my mind. Then as a bristle might take hold of the head or the shoulders of someone weaker than he, and in order to discern and curse that person, he has to hold him down contently without letting go for a moment. So I gritted my teeth, pressed my tongues against my plate, and used my mind to suppress my mind. As I did this, I was bathed in sweat, although I was not lacking in strength, although I maintained mindfulness and did not fall from mindfulness. My body and my mind were not at peace, and I was excited, exhausted by the disturbing, even thought the painful feeling that arose uh, arose in my body, but not able to over, overwhelm them my mind. Obviously, the Buddha was telling us not to practice in this way, yet this passing was later in strayed into other, discouraged to convey exactly the opposite meaning. Just as a bristol takes hold of the head or the shoulders of someone weaker than himself, restrain and force that person and hold him down constantly, not letting go for one moment. So a monk who meditates in order to stop all unwholesome thoughts of desire and aversion, when these thoughts continue to arise, should grit his teeth, press his tongues against his plate, and do his best to use his mind to bet down and defect his mind. There are other instances where teaching of the Buddha have been straight in the wrong place. For instance, the teaching of the 12 links of continued Genesis to be discussed in chapter 27 have been illustrated in many aspects where they do not belong to explain the cycle of birth and death, when in fact the sutras are about the transness of birth and death. They have been wrongly illustrated in the Kathayana Gotara Sutta, or the discourse on the middle way. Often we need to study several discourses and compare them in order to understand which is the true teaching of the Buddha. It is like precious jewels together to make a necklace. If, if we see each sutra in light of the overall body of teaching, we will not be attached to any one teaching with comparative study and looking deeply into the meaning of the text. We can surmise what is a solid teaching. That will be help our practice and what is probably an incorrect transmission. By the time of the Buddha, discourses were written down in Pali. In Sri Lanka, there were 18 or 20 schools, and each had its own essence of the Buddha teaching. Their school did not tear the teachings of Buddha apart, but were Theravadas of a single garment. A number of these dissensions exist today. The Pali Canon contains the dissension that originated with the Theravada Mahasthya school and the Chinese and Taiwan Canon contain dissension from a number of other schools, Satyavada being most prominent. The Satyavada and the Dharma Satya licenses were written down at about the same time. The former was written down in Pali and the later in Sanskrit. Other schools use other Indian language and Prakrit. The sutras that were written down in Pali in Sri Lanka are known as the Southern Transmission, also known as Mahavihara passing tradition. The Sarvesti Veda text known as the Northern Transmission except in Sanskrit. Only in fragmented from fortunately they were translated into Chinese and Taiwan, and many of these translations are still available. We have to remember that the Buddha did not speak Pali, Sanskrit or Prakriti. It is surmised that he spoke a language chosen to Pali, and some think this was Ardha Magadhi, and there is no record of the Buddha words in his own language. By comparing the equivalent sutra in the Pali and Chinese canons, we can see which teachings must have preceded Buddhism, dividing into a school. When the sutra in both canons are the same, we can conclude that what they say must have been there before the vision. When the recensions are different, we can surmise that one or both might be incorrect. The north transmission persuade some discourage better and the southern transmission persuade other better. That is the advantage of having two transmission to compare. The third stream of the Buddha's teaching, Mahayana Buddhism, arose in the first or second century BCE. During the time of school Buddhism, there were some monks who strayed to live a life completely devoted from the rest of the society. The lay people were concerned only with making offering and supporting the monks. That is why at the time there arose among Buddhism lay as well as monastic practitioner the idea of popularizing Buddhism. From his sprouted the Mahayana way of thinking. It was a movement aimed at developing the deep scholars of Buddhism thought and reviewing the tremendous energy of bodhicitta of the mind of love and beginning Buddhism back into contact with life. This was the Mahayanizing movement of Buddhism. These three steps complement one another. It was impossible for scholars Buddhism to remember everything the Buddha had taught, so it was necessary for schools Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism to renew teaching that had been forgotten or overlooked. Like all tradition, Buddhism need to renew itself regularly in order to stay alive and grow. The Buddha always found a new way to express his awakening. Since the Buddha lifetime, Buddhists have continued to open new Dhamma doors to express and share the teaching began in the Deer Park in Sarnath. Please remember that a sutra or a Dhamma talk is not inside in and of itself. It is a means of presenting insight using word and concept. When you use a map to get to places Once you have arrived, you can put the map away and enjoy being in the places. If you spend all the time with your map, if you get caught by the words and noticed present by the Buddha, you will miss the reality. The Buddha said many times, my teaching is like a finger pointing to the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon. Thank you for listening.